The art of the poster is truly something that should not go overlooked. These mostly vertical pieces of art serve the incredibly important function of promoting and getting people interested in the latest big budget Hollywood movie, video game release, and really pretty much anything. I've gotta say that I love posters. These guys just look so great hung up all over my room, surrounding myself with all of my favourite interests, acting like ancient ruins protecting me from women. And of course, as you would expect, the Ninjago franchise is not at all a stranger to having a mountain of posters, with each major Ninjago installment receiving at least one poster each. Now this is definitely my bias showing, as I have dedicated my life to this children's show for over a decade, but Ninjago posters have got to be some of the best posters my eyes have been given the pleasure of seeing. I mean, look at this one. Don't you dare tell me this doesn't stimulate the hell out of your brain. But even I've got to admit that maybe not all Ninjago posters are created equally. While this poster gives me the same feeling that crisp 3 AM water does, this poster gives me the same feeling that falling down a flight of stairs does, and landing into a pit of lava at the end of that flight of stairs, it's that bad. Ninjago posters are truly a dime a dozen, so I suppose it's somewhat unfair to expect every single one to be peak perfection, but my god, can you at least try? Time and time again, people praise the fantastic posters of Ninjago, and I certainly don't blame them. Compared to the other children's shows I have an unhealthy obsession with, these posters belong next to the Mona Lisa. Heck, I'd even say replace the Mona Lisa. This poster has Clancy and this painting doesn't. I think it's clear which one deserves to be in an art gallery. But I think that all those amazing Ninjago posters have had more than enough attention, so why don't we finally go ahead and give some of the spotlight to the little guys, the maybe not so good posters. I mean, we're still going to be making fun of them and calling them horrible names that could result in age restriction, but you know, we're giving them more spotlight than they usually get, so it's okay. The only time you're ever going to see one of these awful Ninjago posters hung up will be on a grave as the cause of death. Now the first posters I want to burn your eye holes with might be seen as sort of cheating, as these posters weren't actually officially released and just mainly served as unfinished concept posters during the beginning of Ninjago's production. But if I had to see them, then you shall too. I would suggest you prepare a barf bag or a Ninjago movie DVD to puke into, as this could get a bit ugly. Alright, okay, I'm maybe willing to admit that I overhyped this poster, as hey, it looks pretty cool so far, with nothing really wrong with it, and oh my god, what kind of creature is that? I genuinely do not mean any offense to the artists who drew this poster, as they definitely do have incredible talent, and sure as hell can draw better than I can, but have they ever seen a human child before? Last I checked, they don't look like this at all. I honestly think that this child might be the demon I see in the corner of my room every night. At least the other child in the poster isn't nearly as nightmarish, actually looking like a human child and not like something sealed away from eternity, which once awakened would summon the apocalypse. Alright, let's move on to the other poster from Ninjago's early production, which yet again starts out pretty normal and cool. I certainly don't want to gouge my eyeballs out just yet, and oh my god, there are 4 of them now. Thankfully, none of these 4 look nearly as bad as the first child, who even reappears now looking actually human. I can't help but feel like there's something wrong with his eyes though, thoughts that nobody should ever know hiding behind them. The white shirt kid is kinda strange looking, but then again this poster isn't exactly 100% finished, so criticism isn't exactly fair. His hair sure does look like it's from the 2000s, so they nailed that look. All I'm going to say about the third kid is that he looks a little bit German, and the final kid actually looks completely normal with nothing at all wrong with him. So congrats to the artist for getting it right after all those attempts. This next poster is actually a finished one for once, and is mainly more of a personal hatred, as to most of you this rebooted poster probably looks perfectly fine and pretty good. Well, you would be wrong, or at least not as mentally deranged as I am. Maybe I just don't like this poster because I don't have the biggest fondness for the actual season itself, but I also really don't like this poster due to how plasticky everything looks. And I get that these guys are literally made of plastic, but they shouldn't look like that in the show or the posters. The bottom original 4 ninja all look way too glossy for my liking, with this white shiny detail appearing on them, especially Jay. It's just so distracting and again makes me see them as nothing but pieces of plastic. Compared to how they look in the show, I've also got to say that the Techno Blades look extremely dull and not nearly as interesting or golden as they do in the show or other promotional media. Also, I'm pretty sure they just forgot to turn Cole's Techno Blade on. Cole just standing there as his Techno Blade just awkwardly floats there in the air without the actual blade part. Lloyd doesn't quite escape my criticisms, as I'm certain that his eyes and eyebrows aren't correct. But I've nitpicked enough of this mostly fine poster, so why don't we just move on already. I mentioned earlier that posters are incredibly important for promoting and getting people interested in the next big major movie hitting the big screen, and with Ninjago getting its very own movie, that of course means tons and tons of special movie posters, and just like the film itself, a large majority of these posters certainly leave a lot to be desired. First to be insulted is the forever iconic Be Water poster. This poster is a part of a series in which a PNG of a Ninjago movie character would be slapped onto a realistic background with the tagline of "Be insert element or adjective here." Most of these are actually pretty cool. Seeing the minifigures interacting with realistic and natural environments is cool to see, and then you have Nia, who looks like she took the Be Green message a bit too far. I don't know what they were thinking when they made Nia's face look like this on the poster. Her smile is just way too big and honestly, kind of creepy looking. She's in the Ninjago movie, she should not be this happy. The people making the Ninjago movie posters really had a big problem with making natural looking faces for the ninja, because here you have a poster of Lloyd in both his casual attire and his ninja outfit. All seems well until you take a look at Lloyd's face. Why on earth does he look like that? His face looks so awkward. Ignoring the actual expression, the whole face looks like it was made on MS Paint and then slapped on top of a render of much higher quality. The rest of the ninja also got one of these posters, but all of their faces look normal. So why does Lloyd, the main character of the film, have this really awkward and unnatural looking face? This render already had a much better and natural looking facial expression, so I really don't see as to why they would go through the hassle of giving a different, much worse expression. Did they honestly think it would make people want to go see the movie? If anything, it probably made people stay away from it. Moving away from nitpicking facial expressions, we have another Ninjago movie poster, which I'm fairly certain was used with a DVD of the movie. This poster isn't exactly totally awful, but more lazy, with these random PNGs of the ninja all slapped onto this one background. Cole looks the most out of place, as he's just randomly floating there. If you even zoom in on his like hole, you can see that it doesn't even match the blue sky behind him. Nia also looks extremely out of place, randomly floating in the air. At least Zane somewhat makes sense as he's coming down from an angle with his bow. And poor old Jay just gets shoved in the bottom right of the poster, getting overshadowed by the rest of the ninja. Or not overshadowed because they just forgot to add Lloyd's shadow underneath him like they did with Jay. I feel as if a good few of the Ninjago movie posters could be summed up as lazy, but a good few could also be summed up as cringy. With the main demographic of the film being kids, they try to relate to them with such great posters such as this, "When Teach catches you on your phone." That is correct, Ninjago movie marketing. That is exactly what it is like when Teach catches me on my phone. And then there's this one. That feeling when your teacher asks if you did your homework. Haha, yes. A very relatable 30-year-old who made this poster. The kids will love it. Cole even joins in on the cringe, with that feeling when your favorite song comes on. And even Kai gets a cringy poster, with that feeling when you're finally done with class. I feel like they're missing a poster that says that feeling when your movie is a massive financial flop. These Ninjago movie posters absolutely reek of how do you do, fellow kids. Just a bunch of out of touch movie executives sweating to come up with posters to get kids interested in the movie. I don't think it's a very controversial take to say that Crystallized was a pretty mediocre season, so a mediocre poster makes sense to go along with it. At first, the main Crystallized poster looks pretty good, all of the major players being represented, and even Fujidove getting to be one of the floating heads on the poster. How could anybody think this was a bad poster? While a lot of complaints of this poster stem from the fact that it's nothing more than a reference to the Avengers Endgame poster, which means every time I look at this Ninjago poster, it just makes me think of something much better that I'd rather watch instead. At first, it was cool to see Ninjago reference the Avengers Endgame poster, which is a totally original idea they came up with, but now years later, this poster feels like such a waste. Instead of getting a proper poster that actually relates to the season, we instead got a poster referencing the highest grossing movie at the time, which takes away a lot of the timeless nature that I believe Ninjago has. It certainly doesn't help that Endgame came out in 2019, and Crystallized came out in 2022, meaning they were already years late to the Endgame hype. Imagine the Angry Birds movie 2 of all things beating it at a punch. Now that is tragic. This other Crystallized poster genuinely blows the Endgame style one out of the water and into a hole hopefully never to return. Sure, it doesn't have every single character, but it's got the really cool and subtle detail of all the Crystal Council being able to be seen on this crystal in the middle, along with what looks like Lloyd's eyes. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be the only lackluster poster for this season, as Crystallized would be cursed with this abomination. one of the laziest and maybe even the laziest Ninjago poster of all time. Every time I see this poster against my will, I feel the life being sucked out of my soul bit by bit. Through the process of editing this video, I genuinely expect to be left as a husk of a human being. Starting from the left, we have Jay and Cole representing the ninja. Cole looking especially strange as all they did was take the Cole render from the main poster and flip it the other way, so he and Jay would be facing the villains, which just looks so wrong. Right in the middle, we actually have a different Wu from the other poster, which looks pretty cool, with Wu wearing the dragon armor and also wearing the wing pack. But I gotta say, the way he's pointing and looking right at the viewer does look awfully silly to me. It just reminds me of this infamous PNG of Wu that took over the Ninjago community for a week and a half. And then we have the villains on the right, which, yet again, are just a few random PNGs crammed together and made to somewhat be facing against the ninja. You can so clearly tell that Pythor was just nabbed from a screenshot of the show and plastered onto the poster. Was this Pythor render just not good enough for them? The rest of the poster certainly doesn't scream top quality, so why care so much now? There is really nothing remarkable or interesting about this poster. It's so boring and is so cheaply made. I'm sure they did the best they could with whatever budget was found underneath the break room couch. As good as Dragon's Rising is, not even it is safe from getting lackluster and terrible posters, with this one here being just as, if not more lazy, than the previous crystallized poster. Another case of slapping a batch of random PNGs onto the same background, with no real connectivity between the characters. Remember that whole Find the Merge Fragments marketing campaign that happened right at the beginning of Dragon's Rising's life? That was a pretty cool advertising campaign, I've gotta say, but the poster we got after combining all the fragments is anything but pretty cool. Just like their previous poster, all they really did was grab a bundle of PNGs and throw them all together, resulting in a pretty crammed and not at all visually appealing poster. Sure, this was a cool poster at the start, but now looking back it looks incredibly messy with no real proper layout or presentation. All of the characters weirdly positioned around the Dragon's Rising logo. Honestly, I found it a bit of a challenge to find a lot of Ninjago posters that could be deemed as truly awful, as Ninjago has had a very good track record of giving us actually good posters, admittedly with the occasional disgrace slipping through the cracks now and again. I definitely can't wait to gaze upon future Ninjago posters, which are sure to continue being pieces of art. If a banana taped to a wall can be considered a piece of art, then so can a bunch of plastic ninja, as long as the people are actually making the posters aren't the laziest and cheapest people on the planet. If aliens were to arrive on Earth and this was their first impression of what humans have made, we would all be dead in about 50 seconds.